Steelers get a huge win over the Cincinnati Bengals. They won this matchup 44-38. The reason why this is a huge matchup, they lost last week to a division rival in the Cleveland Browns. And you come back this week and you defeat the Cincinnati Bengals. So now on the season, the Steelers have defeated the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. And they face the Cleveland Browns next week at home. That's going to be a very pivotal game. But in this matchup, this was a phenomenal outing for the offense. Yes, you went against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but they beat the Bengals at their own game. The Bengals wanted to shoot out. The Steelers went out there, and they basically gave them what they wanted. Now, one of the touchdowns in particular, the first touchdown for the Bengals, it shouldn't have stood. You see the photo right here. This is defensive illegal hands to the face on Cam Taylor-Britt, but they did not call it. He has his hand right behind George Pickens' helmet, and he just slams him to the ground. And it goes for a pick six. This was the only interception on the day that Russell Wilson threw. At halftime, Russell Wilson had 257 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. On the day, 414 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and he only got sacked twice. And the last couple of matchups against the Browns in particular and against the Baltimore Ravens, Russell Wilson was pressured a lot. Today against the leading sack leader and Trey Hendrickson, he was not able to do much. They chip blocked him a lot. They double teamed him a lot. They shift the offensive line around. A lot of the times when you look at the penalties in this matchup for the Steelers on the offensive side, you had to delay a game, a legal man downfield. But the delay of games, it came from basically Russell Wilson pointing out offensive line protection, sliding the offensive line to the left, sliding the offensive line to the right. Shout out to Russell Wilson. And besides that interception that should have not counted, he played very well today. This was his best game as a Steeler. As a matter of fact, this is the best game that he has had in his career since he was with the Seattle Seahawks. This was one of the best games that he's had in his entire career, yards-wise and completion percentage-wise. Najee Harris went out there. He had 75 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Cordell Patterson had 16 rushing yards. They put Cordell Patterson in the game early on. They gave Najee Harris the football 5 times in a row. And he had to go to the sideline and catch a breather. But they put in Jaylen Warren. They put in Cordell Patterson. The offense did not take a major hit when he was out. As we know, Najee Harris is not the most consistent running back. He had 3 games in a row. He had over 100 yards rushing. Since then, he's been up and down, but he's a solid power back to have. And going against a weak defense of the Cincinnati Bengals, that's a great thing to see. So shout out to the offensive personnel for going out there and taking care of business against Trey Hendrickson and giving Russell Wilson enough time in the pocket. And another thing that I noticed, he was targeting the middle of the field, not deep down the field, but underneath. They had a lot of plays underneath. They would just get the football to Cordell Patterson, get the football to Calvin Austin III, who left early in today's matchup. And they were also getting it to George Pickens. And speaking of Calvin Austin III, he got hit twice in this matchup. 2 huge hits. But before he left the game, he went out there. He had 2 catches, 29 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. That would get it done. Big Pat had a very good day blocking and receiving. 6 catches, 68 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. George Pickens looked like a superstar in this matchup, and he is a superstar. 74 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. The penalties have to stop. He had 2 major penalties. One, he put the ball right on the defender, basically saying, you can't guard me. You know how referees are. They're sensitive to trash talk. They throw the flag. That was an unsportsmanlike conduct. They call that flag on him. Later in the game, just a couple plays later, when they get the ball back, he goes into the red zone. Right after the play happens, it goes for a 15-yard penalty. The Steelers were on the roll. They had to settle for a field goal. You can't have those type of plays. I understand the Bengals go out there, they trash talk. They're not going to call the flags in your favor, especially when you're on the road. As you can obviously see, they've gifted them a free touchdown early in the game. George Pickens has to calm down and mature. And it was very weird to see, but at the same time, very encouraging to see Broderick Jones, who is also another young player. He's a college teammate with George Pickens at Georgia, basically telling him to calm down. And Coach Tomlin told him to calm down also. He had to calm him down after the referees not throw the flag early in the game to where Cam Taylor-Britt grabbed him by his helmet and slung him to the ground. Just little plays like that. George Pickens is a phenomenal player. And we always make jokes, hey, he's the NBA young boy of the NFL. It's all fun and games until a major penalty comes or until a major flag comes and knocks you out of field goal range or knocks you out of scoring distance. Just tone down on that. And for his credit, in the second half, zero flags on him. He looked better in the second half. He was calmer. He was going out there. He was finishing his routes. All you have to do is get him the football. And Russell Wilson has done a phenomenal job of that. And give Arthur Smith a lot of credit. He came out there with a complete game plan today. I still have questions about this offense moving forward, but if they can perform just half of like how they did today, the Steelers will be in a very good situation. And you guys know what I said a couple weeks ago. I still see them as an elite contender in the AFC. Not just because of this matchup right here against the Bengals, who are one of the weaker teams in the NFL. I'm saying this because their defense is so dominant on a week in and week out basis. Even in today's matchup, you take away the one touchdown that shouldn't have stood. The defense did play well. Joe Burrow did have 3 touchdowns on the day. Shout out to him. But Nick Herbig had a major fumble that went for 6 points. TJ Watt had a fumble also. They helped the Steelers get into scoring range. They got a field goal off of that. And they had a field goal attempt that was blocking this matchup, which is a rare occurrence for the Steelers special teams because their special teams are one of the best units with the Steelers organization. So when I look at it from that standpoint, they're going to be good moving forward. As long as Russell Wilson can get the football to George Pickens and Calvin Austin III and Big Pat, and I would like to see Mike Williams be used more in today's matchup. Mike Williams did not even come into the game, even when Calvin Austin III was out. And we could say, hey, let's acclimate him more into the system. The man had the game-winning receiving touchdown against the Washington Commanders a few weeks ago. Van Jefferson did have a huge play that went for 43 yards on a slant pattern when they sent in an all-out blitz. But at the same time, I do believe that Mike Williams is a better wide receiver than Van Jefferson. I'm not saying go out there and get him 5 to 10 targets a game, but Mike Williams can be very valuable in the red zone situation. And we saw in today's game, the red zone offense was better with Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, and Calvin Austin III. This was a complete game for the Steelers on the offensive end, and they have to continue to head in this direction. Now back to the defense. TJ Watt has had a quiet season for his standards. Not a bad season, but he's getting double and triple teamed a lot. And obviously his numbers are going to take a hit because Alex Highsmith has been out over the last few weeks dealing with an ankle injury. But Herbig has come in. He's been making major plays. Made a major play against the Baltimore Ravens. He stopped that 2-point conversion play. He blew that play up. Had a major turnover last week against the Cleveland Browns. The offense cannot capitalize off of it. And today's matchup had a fumble that went for 6. TJ Watt had a major fumble. Cameron Hayward is still my defensive MVP in this matchup. He was getting to Joe Burrow. He was pushing the pocket, and he did not allow Joe Burrow to step up inside the pocket. And those are key plays with Big Cam. Early on, you saw the run game with Chase Brown. He was able to go out there. He was able to run around the defense of the Steelers. In the second half, they stopped all of that. They neutralized the run game, and they forced Joe Burrow to go out there and be in uncomfortable situations. When I look at Minkah Fitzpatrick, another complete game by him, did not allow too many deep plays moving down the field. Yes, you had the one play to Jamar Chase in the red zone, but on the day, I believe the secondary did a solid job of taking care of everyone on the boundary. Jamar Chase only had 86 receiving yards, T. Higgins 69 receiving yards. And it brings me into one cornerback in particular. Dante Jackson had a very good game. Joey Porter Jr. had 5 penalties in this matchup. 5. He has to stop holding. One of the plays were bang with him and also with T. Higgins, but he has to stop holding. He's a lanky corner. Sometimes you can give a wide receiver cushion. And the way that the Steelers play defense in certain situations, if you have single high safety and you don't believe that Minkah Fitzpatrick can rotate over, you play the inside of the wide receiver because his arms are so long. He can make up ground with his length. He doesn't have to always press and jam up at the line of scrimmage, especially when the wide receiver is going deep down the field. You can go parallel with him, ride his hips if you have to, but do not get into a hand fight competition deep down the field. When you're past 5 yards, you can't have that happen. And he has to get lower in those pads. He's getting his hands too close to the face of the wide receiver. That's going to always be illegal hands to the face, like how it was in the red zone. You don't want to see that with Joey Porter Jr., a very good cornerback, but he's had some bad moments this season against Terry McLaurin and also against Jerry Jeudy. This is a kid that's a very good cornerback. This is only year number 2, but he was relying too much on that length that he has on his arms, and that is fine to do at times, but in short yardage situations, you can get away with that. You can press up, you can jam, but when it's long distance, when it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, you don't want to do that. And it gave the Bengals a lot of yards on the back end. 2 of the touchdowns would have not happened in this matchup if it was not for Joey Porter Jr. going out there and having those costly penalties. Very good football player. I don't want you guys to think that I'm saying that he's terrible, because he's not. But we saw these penalties happen his rookie season. We saw this in college. In the first half of this season, you didn't see him as much. Over the last few weeks, he's starting to deal with this nasty problem again. If the wide receiver beats you, that's okay. You're going to have safety help over top with Micah Fitzpatrick. And if you don't, use those arms later on in the play, and then you can deflect the ball. But I still think that Joey Porter Jr. is a good player. It's just some of these penalties make me scratch my head. I'm not going to come on here and say the Steelers are a Super Bowl contender because they beat a weaker team in the Cincinnati Bengals. But at the same time, last week I was not panicking when they lost against the Cleveland Browns. It was a bad week. Losses happen. I'm sticking to the same point that I had a few weeks ago. If they can go out there and average over 23 points a game, and it may be tough on certain weeks, but if they can do that against top-tier defenses in the NFL, they're going to be good. I look at the Steelers from this standpoint. You have a veteran quarterback in Russell Wilson, who is more than good enough to get you over the hump. Your offensive line can be an issue against top pass rushers, but they're starting to go out there and figure that situation out. Look at what happened in the second half against the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett did not do much. And in today's game against Trey Hendrickson, they came out with the right game plan. Chip him, double team him at times, slide the protection one way, and get creative on the offensive end. When I look at the defense, you have a star pass rusher in TJ Watt. Alex Highsmith is scheduled to be back in a couple weeks, back from that ankle injury. You bring in Preston Smith, who was a very good veteran presence to have on the outside. Patrick Queen has become a very good, reliable linebacker at the middle linebacker position spot. Remember last season, they were dealing with a lot of injuries at that position. And you have Peyton Wilson, who was a good rookie. As a matter of fact, he had a major play against the Baltimore Ravens that went for an interception. In today's game, he had a touchdown. He was the guy that recovered the football for when Nick Herbig came out of nowhere and knocked the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands. These are key plays for the Steelers. And if their defense can continue to go out there and give them the football in short yard situations or just come up with points, they're going to be even better off for it. And they have one of the best special teams groups in all of the NFL. I like the Steelers right now. Today was a dominant win. They went out there and they won in shootout fashion. Russell Wilson may not be the same quarterback that he once was with the Seattle Seahawks, but he doesn't have to be. He just has to be good enough to get the football to George Pickens, Calvin Austin III at the deeper part of the field, and you're going to be fine. I think the Steelers will go out there, and I think that they have a great shot of winning this division. The rest of the schedule is tough. They face the Philadelphia Eagles. They face the Kansas City Chiefs very soon. But I look at it from this situation. I think they can go out there and they can deal with those teams with the defense that they have and the veteranship with Russell Wilson. Let's not forget that Russell Wilson went against Patrick Mahomes on the road last year in Kansas City, and he won that football game. And the Chiefs, they're dealing with a lot of problems, offensive line problem issues. The back end of their defense is not the same. Every team in the NFL right now is dealing with a problem, and that's what's making the NFL so fun to watch. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about this win? How you feel about the Steelers moving forward? And I expect for them to get revenge against the Cleveland Browns next week. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.